Okay, this video is going to be a demonstration on how to set up the RSLogix 500 software along with RSLinks. It assumes that the software has been downloaded correctly and authorized correctly. I have icons on my desktop for RSLogix 500, for the emulator software, and for RSLinks. So I'm going to start with RSLinks. I could click on the icon, but in case you don't have an icon on your desktop, we can go to Programs, Rockwell Software, RSLinks, and click on RSLinks Classic. The program starts up. And we can look at an initial view of our network by clicking on the icon, and we get an RSWho window that shows that we just have a links gateway. That basically means that we don't have anything configured. So to start with, to configure the communications, we go to the menu item Communications and Configure Drivers. At the current time, this list is empty, so there are no drivers in RSLinks, so basically I wouldn't talk to anything. I click on the available driver types, and on this list is a whole list of all the different types of communications that can be set up. Ethernet. In the lab we would use a serial device, that would be RS-232. For our purposes though, since we're going to use the emulator, we're going to click on the SLC 500 emulator driver, and I'm going to click on the Add New. A window pops up that gives a default name. I'm not going to change this name. I'll use the default name, so I'll say OK. And it asks for a station number. We'll use the default as 00. I'll click on OK. And now the driver is configured and it shows a status of running. This is a good thing. I can close this window now, and if I click on the line that has been added here, I'll see that this is my workstation is set up. So now I have my PC ready to talk to the software, the RSLogix 500 software. So I'm basically done with RSLinks. I'm completely done with this, and really shouldn't have to open this ever again. It should start up automatically when need be. I do, however, need to leave it running in the background, so I'm going to minimize RSLinks Classic. So in order to use the emulator, again, I would click on the emulator icon, but I'm going to go through the program file list, and I'm going to click on Rockwell Software, go to Emulate, and click on RSLogix Emulate 500. There is nothing to do at this point. All I need is for this program to be running in the background. There's really nothing to select up here. There's nothing to set up. It will work when we ask it to work, and this is going to be the software that actually acts like the PLC, like we would have in the lab. So again, this needs to be running in the background, so I'm going to minimize that. The last thing I need to do is to start my RSLogix 500. Again, I could use the icon. I'm going to go through the menu tree, and I'm going to go to RSLogix 500 English and go to RSLogix 500 English. The software should start. It's a fairly large program, so it'll take a little bit of time to start. And when it does, we should be able to set up the communications for the driver. Taking a little bit of time here. Let me see what's taking so long here. There we go. Actually, now I have two instances. I'm going to close one. That's what you get for being impatient. Okay, so this is the blank screen with no project set up. It's what you'll start with each time when you go to start the lab. And in order to start a new program, I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm presented with a list of a great deal of list of PLCs that we can program with this software. The PLC that I'm going to select is 2 tabs down, the 1747L531, and it's the 5/03 8K memory OS 302. This is the exact one that we have in the lab. This is the actual hardware. If you wanted to save your program and try to run it actually on the hardware in the lab, you could do that. And one thing from after selecting this, we want to make sure that we select our EMU 500 driver. Now we've set up the link between the RSLogix 500 software and the RSLinks. So I'm going to click on OK. A window opens up that shows what should be a typical window configuration here, where we have our project tree, we have our ladder programming area here, up here we have the online portion, and then we have our programming icons. So I'm almost ready to start a program, but first I have to configure the I/O. I'm going to double click on the I/O configuration, and this is where we have to define what's physically in the I/O rack with the PLC. As you can see, by default the program puts in a 4-slot rack, and it's filled in for the first card slot. It's filled in the processor, which we told it we're going to use. Now each card, if we use them, and we're going to use all 3 of them, each card needs to be defined as to what's in that, physically in that card slot. So the slot in the first, or the card in the first slot, is a 1746 IB8, which is an 8 input sync 24 volt DC card. I'm going to select that on the list to the right, and I'm going to double click, and as you can see, it puts that on the line for card slot 1. Card slot 2 is an output card, and that is a 1746 OX8, and I'm going to go down here in the list and hopefully find that, which I did, and that's a 1746 OX8. It's an 8 output isolated relay, so that's our output card. And finally, the third card is an analog input card, and it is a 1746 NI4. I'm going to double click on that, and that fills up the entire 4-slot rack. So this is the exact configuration that we would find in the lab. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this window, and now I can begin my programming. I'm just going to put in a real simple program here. I have to insert a rung, and I'm just going to put in a normally open contact. I'm going to put in input 1/0. Remember, that's card slot 1, so that's the input. I'm not even going to bother with a address instruction. I'm going to put a simple output. A simple output, it's 2/0, and again, I'm not going to put an address. And then in order to download this, I need to make sure that the file is verified. So I'm going to go to Edit, Verify Project, and it says Verify has completed, no errors found. And as you can see now, for the inputs it's filled in. It knows that input card slot 1 is an IB8, and output card slot 2 is an OX8. So it filled that in, saying that okay, that's the I/O that we told it. If we had not done that, it would have given us an error and said the I/O is undefined. We would not be able to download it. So finally, I'm going to download this to the processor. I'm going to go to Comms, Download, and it always asks for a project name. So I'm going to leave it as untitled, but you should name this whatever project, whatever lab that you happen to be working on. And I'm just going to click on Save, and it's going to say, do you want to proceed with the download? Yes, I do, and I want to go online. So now all of a sudden things have started to happen. As you can see, the animated icon for the ladder here is spinning around at a very high rate. This is a good sign, meaning that we communicate very quickly with our virtual processor, and always by default we start in a remote program mode. So in order to make things run, I'm going to go to a run mode, and of course everything, we always get asked, do we want to do this, and the answer is yes. And now you can see the processor is in remote run mode, and with the green highlights here for the ladder rung, I know that I'm online and that I'm in run. Finally, if I want to see this thing do something, I can highlight that input element and say toggle bit, and the highlight for the input turns on, and because the ladder diagram is being scanned and the PLC is in run, the output turns on. So I can toggle it back off if I want. The output turns off. I can go back to remote program, and I can go offline. And of course, if there's any changes, it says, do you want to save changes? I'll say yes, I do. It asks for a rev note, and it says, do you want to update data table values? We'll talk about those items later. And so there I am. That's my first program. I've set up the link with RSLogix. I got the emulator running, and so this is the example of our first programming link using RSLogix 500 and RSLinks.